Good evening, everyone. Welcome to you from the Coaches for You family. Hi. Coaches for You is a community of coaches from all parts of the country who have joined hands to support the society at large during these challenging times. I am Rekha, your host for the session today. We also want to keep you informed that the session will be recorded and will be posted on YouTube for future viewership. Let me start off by inviting you for this interesting discussion which we have today, bouncing back from setbacks. I'm sure this topic would have given rise to a lot of questions and curiosity in your heads, right? And I know that this topic is very close to our speaker's heart. Let me introduce him to you. So welcome, Chris D'Souza. Chris is a leadership, So Chris is a leadership development and talent consultant with around 20 plus years of blended experience, both in global delivery and people development in organizations such as IBM, HCL Technologies, and Citibank. He's an ICF credentialed PCC executive coach, a human capital strategist, and a project management professional. His areas of expertise are executive coaching, leadership development, talent consulting, HR strategy, and operations. Chris has trained several thousand professionals, including senior leadership, and has successfully coached many of them to level up in their careers. Wow, Chris, that's a very impressive career graph that you have. Chris also conducts management development seminars at various forums and has co-authored a leadership book for dads, which focuses on a relational approach to parenting. I'm sure that's going to be an interesting read. A fun fact about Chris, which you will not find on LinkedIn, and in his own words. So Chris says that he makes salads and omelets, and he's pretty good at that, is what he has been told. Welcome, Chris, and over to you.
Thank you, Rekha, for that lovely introduction. So without spending too much more time, I think we'll begin our webinar. So welcome everybody, and let's get on to it as soon as we can. Few recommendations. My suggestion here is, first of all, listen to saying, I mean, the words are on the screen, and I'm sure you'll kind of hear, you'll see a lot of it on the screen. But I would suggest that you take right now, grab a piece of paper or a notebook and a pen and make notes when you get that aha moment, when some word that you see or hear, meets with some insight of yours, note that down, because that is what is important. So can you all reach out for that pen and paper, please? Yeah, great. So nice. And you're free to share your experiences on chat. I'll try to keep checking as much as possible. And the agenda is as follows. Very simple. It's a very short session, so we can't get into depth, but then we'll look at what is a setback and what does it mean to us. How do setbacks affect us? Yeah. How do we get affected in terms of our being? And how can we deal with setbacks and bounce back from setbacks? Okay. So let's get into it. So what is a setback? Can anybody, maybe you can use chat, what is a setback? What, in your own simple words? Anyone?
Expectation that which goes against our desires or wishes or plans.
Okay, so you have a plan and then there's a disappointment, there's a challenge. Lovely. So we're already seeing some good definitions of setbacks. So you just imagine you're driving down a road, going out of town, and then suddenly from a hill this thing rolls down, and your car cannot move. You're just stuck there. This is an example of a huge setback. And if you have some resources underperforming, like someone else, Krishnan has said, the cumulative effect of that is also a setback. So you can have major setbacks or minor setbacks, but then the effects are kind of akin to each other, because a cumulative effect of small setbacks will be like a major setback for you. In simple words, a setback is something that just sets you back. Yeah, it just sets you back. Come up suddenly, and they represent a detour. You've made a plan, but then you've got to make a backup plan, a contingency plan you have to get into, make an alternate route, and you've got to completely, change course. So in brief, this is what a setback means to us. So now I want you to take your pen and paper and identify a setback you recently faced. Maybe in the last few days, in the last few months, during the lockdown. Can you identify one setback? Just put it down in, either on your your notebook, or even on chat if you like to put down the setback that you faced. Now you may say, I've sailed smoothly through these entire few months. I haven't had a setback. I'm sure you would have experienced some of your clients or your family members going through setbacks. Don't say no. I'm sure you would have experienced that. So just visualize one of those people and their setback. Put it down. Identify that one setback, make note of it. Wow, is death a setback? What do you say, others? Is death a setback? I mean, for the person who's dying, obviously, there will be no, what shall I say, self-awareness. But for the rest of us, yes, it's a terrible setback, especially if it's a loved one. Okay, now, have you put it down? Okay, great. These are some common setbacks that we face. Most of us are working people, and many have lost jobs, or some of our clients have lost jobs. Maybe we tried to start up some business and then the lockdown came along and it kind of failed. Or simple, cumulative issues at work, like work harassment. And for students, it might be failure in exams, or the constant pressure of parents, sitting on your head saying, study, 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 study. Loss of health. So many people have experienced so much of pain and struggle and loss of health during this entire period. The death of a loved one. One of my wife's cousin's husband, at the age of 42, he just passed away with a massive heart attack recently. No warning, nothing, and he's gone. Relationship failures, so many of them nowadays. Counselors get these kind of calls, divorce, and there's a lot of stress that builds around it. Not able to attend the funeral of a loved one, I think that is so painful, so painful. You cannot say goodbye to somebody, and someone as Johnny is, somebody has experienced it. So I think setbacks are not something that we cannot identify with. Each one of us here in this room can identify setbacks, but two important points. One is setbacks are normal. Now, we should not feel that when we experience a setback, that something abnormal is happening, or worse still, that we are abnormal or we are the setback. Sometimes we tend to identify with the setback, or some of our clients tend to identify with the setback and fuse with it. And then comes in a bigger problem, because setbacks are normal things people face. As you've seen, so many of us face setbacks. And we are not alone. Lest we think we are alone, we have our family, we have counselors, we have coaches. But the strange part of it is, during the setback, we somehow feel that we are all alone, and there's no one for us. So how do setbacks affect us? I mean, can we say that setbacks affect our us physically, our physical health, and that's all about it? No, we are multidimensional beings, tripartite beings, they say. And we have a body, a mind, and a spirit, and they're very, very closely interlinked. So when one part is affected, the other is also affected. So they are affected entirely. And the focus, we're really going to focus on the emotional impact of the setback during this session. So these are some of the effects. We become anxious, fearful, and then the entire stress reaction, the fight or the flight reaction, our stress hormones are secreted, our heartbeat increases, and there is a lot of reactions in the body, inflammation and ill health. We might just get irritable, or find ourselves not being able to sleep, or just delay things because we don't feel confidence. One of the worst things is self-doubt. We begin to doubt our capability. You know, uh, are we good enough? And when it starts affecting our self-image, then it goes even deeper. It hits harder when our self-image is not good. When we have a low self-image, setbacks hit us harder. Or have you seen oversensitive people? Have you been called oversensitive? Have you heard somebody saying, you know, this person is too sensitive, takes things very personally? So these kind of people are hit even deeper by setbacks. Can you think of people, or can you identify with being oversensitive? Then setbacks hit you harder. So you notice in this whole thing, there is in this entire thing, there is the aspect of perception also that is coming in. A setback that's hit me badly may not hit Rekha badly. You know, it's kind of relative in some ways. Yeah. So let's come to the crux of the matter. How can we bounce back from setbacks? How do we actually recover from setbacks? Somebody spoke about resilience, and this whole this section is about resilience. Even though I haven't used the word resilience here, this entire section is about resilience. Some people are more resilient and they bounce back. Some people need to develop their level of resilience and be able to bounce back. So I've got a very simple framework I put down for you. I'm not using big technical terms so that it can really sink in and we can reflect and apply it to our lives. Okay, so this is the framework. Acknowledge the setback, reframe it, and then bounce back. Okay, so we look at each one in the following slides. First of all, our initial reaction will be one of denial, usually one of shock. Did this happen? How could this happen? But the moment we do not, let's say we do not accept the setback, we are at no point to begin. We have no starting point when we deny the setback. It's only when we accept the setback can we actually begin working on ourselves and then moving on. So it's very important not to deny, or if we have clients who are in a denial mode, we need to gently bring them to the mode of acceptance and then take them on. So that is the first step. Face your feelings. Now, setback is accompanied by a lot of feelings. Try and recall the setback that you noted down. What did you experience? Can you describe the feeling? Can you put it down on chat and just describe in a word or two what you felt? Maybe you'll have to close your eyes and then reflect. Here, helplessness, incomplete. Yeah, I'm not confident. Sadness, jeopardy. So these are some of the feelings that we face, and there are many more feelings. It's very important to, label that feeling. It could be anger, frustration, loneliness. It's very important that we label that particular feeling. When we identify that feeling and we label it, just keep putting it down. If not on chat, put it down on your note pad or on your book. Anxiety, emotional pain. And as you label that feeling, you can observe the sensations in your body. Maybe your blood pressure is rising. Maybe your fists are clenched. Maybe you're sweating profusely. It's okay to feel all those things. Feeling bad is not wrong. It's not bad to feel bad. Heart is, yeah, my heart for my kid, or for the person who died, or my neighbor, somebody who lost their loved one. There's so much of anxiety in my mind. The moment we put it down, we create a separation between us and the feeling, and that is a step to healing. So it's very important that we put down our feelings. We identify our feelings. The other extreme is to suppress them. And what happens when you suppress them? It always comes out, another way. Maybe you go just quiet, you become sarcastic, you try to get back in another way, you explode, you withdraw. The important thing is, even though you've expressed your feeling, don't judge yourself. There's nothing wrong with the feeling. If that feeling leads to some wrong action, or I hurt somebody, then it's a different thing. But acknowledging your feelings is not wrong. So never judge your feeling. Encourage your clients not to judge their feelings. It's okay to feel angry. There's nothing wrong. We are human beings and we are built in with feelings as a response and coping mechanism. Understanding failure better. This is a huge concept, but we'll just look at it briefly here. Why don't we deal properly with failures? Most cultures don't deal properly with failure. Do you agree? And if so, why? Name it to tame it. Very nice, Johnny. So most cultures don't deal properly with failure. Why do you think so? So let me give you a small example. Don't know. Yes, it's not acceptable. Yeah. Failure and blame are closely coupled. They're kind of inseparable. It's only when we delink failure from blame that people will be able to come out. Yes, it's considered a sign of weakness. So if you notice, even in organizations, when there is a failure, there's a corrective action, there's a preventive action. People put down reports, they institutionalize it, send it to their team, send it to other teams. What happens? People look at it and delete it. Do we really understand what's happening? Self-judgment. Yes. So failure is very closely associated with blame. A friend of mine, a businessman friend of mine, was telling me he was doing roaring business. Yeah. And he said everything is going fine except one thing. And what is that one thing? He said, my team cannot report failure. And I noticed that, every time I went to his outlet, it's a fast food outlet, he has a different set of people. So he's been, rotating, changing, firing people, all because they did not report failure well. Maybe it's a past experience of having had to report failure and then being blamed for it. Yeah. So it's very important that we learn that failure is different from blame and separate the two. Failure needs to be a stepping stone to learning, to reward, etc. And it's not about us putting our head on the line. This is not an easy thing. It's something that we have to consciously develop, or we have to unlearn. And like someone said, about building resilience in your children, this is a very, very key and important point. When something goes wrong with them, do I immediately blame? This could be the key to building resilience in them, one of the keys. So the next point is to reframe and shift. Can you note down again on your pieces of paper or your notebooks? The question is not here, but let me just ask you the question. What is my setback saying to me? If my setback could say something to me, what is my setback saying to me? You could even type it on chat. Yeah, I am not perfect. And is that okay? Yes, that is okay. That is perfectly okay not to be perfect. Is there anything to learn here? Try a different approach. So these are, positive messages from setbacks. But mind you, we can also get negative messages, messages like accusatory ones. You are useless. We got to be careful to weed them out. We need to help our clients also learn from their setbacks. What is my setback saying to me? Let's face it, that's reality. Let's move on. So these are lovely responses that you guys have picked up from your setbacks. Okay. So we look at a simple technique, and this technique is basically an adaptation of Albert Ellis's RET, and it was put forward by Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology. I'm sure you've read one of his books or heard about him, etc. He talks about learned optimism versus learned helplessness. So the first thing is make a shift in your thinking, and this is how we do it. First of all, we look at the adversity or the situation. This is our setback. The setback comes at us this way, in the form of the adversity. Now, between the adversity and the next step is my belief. What is that self-talk that is happening? What's going on in my head? What are those voices? Because they're going to form the next layer, and that is my thinking, my perceptions, my expectations, my evaluations, my judgment, my generalizations about myself. This is the self-explanatory part, which is the most important. And then finally, the consequences. Because of this, I sit quietly in a corner and do nothing. Or because of this, I start judging others. Because of this, I back out from some group. Because of this, I decide to take revenge on somebody, you know. So these consequences are a result of these beliefs. So what do we do? I mean, this is very clear. Most of us already know that. So what do we do? First is track your inner dialogue. What is the inner dialogue between that setback and my thinking? Can you put down, you need not write this on chat, but can you put down in your notebook, what's your dialogue? Just one line. You know, I'll give you an example. I found myself often saying, I don't know, okay, during the lockdown. So I realized that I don't know is not coming from a positive place, because it's preventing me from going forward and doing anything whatsoever. So when I realized that this I don't know is happening, I decided I need to shut up that voice. Yeah, it's not the end of the world. My memory of the person who passed on is that of good memories rather than being at the funeral. Yes. So what is that voice that is coming up? What is your inner dialogue? You can note that down in your notebook, because this might help you to move to the next step. Okay. The next one is examine your beliefs. Look for patterns. Like I found a pattern I don't know that was, you know, going on, broadcasting itself in my mind. And the last step is to question, dispute false ones and replace them with right ones. Okay, let me give you a small example closer to home. So this is my son. He's 12 years old and he's a great football player. I'm proud of him. So you see him there with me and Weidenfeller, Roman Weidenfeller, who came briefly visiting last year. He's a goalkeeper. He was a goalkeeper for Bundesliga's clubs. So David came home one day and he said, I want to give up football. And I said, what? What are you talking nonsense? You love the game. So what do you mean you want to give up football? And he said, see, Dad, my coach kind of picked on me. I didn't play well. I really feel everything is going wrong, and I want to give up. So I said, son, would you want to reconsider? And he said, no, I want to give up. So I kept quiet and I waited for him. Went to bed, woke up the next morning, and I asked him, so son, what did you decide? He said, I want to give up. I said, okay, let me not lecture him. And I waited for more time. I was pleasantly surprised in the evening when he started putting on his football gear and he said bye to me. I said, hey, wait, what happened? I said. Then he said, I'll tell you when I'm back. So I waited for him to come back. And then he told me. He said, I was thinking, and I have certain areas or issues that I can control. There are certain issues that I cannot control. And he listed them all. He said, I chose to only work on those things that I can control. And the other thing he said is, I'm not going to worry about the next game. I'm just going to take myself from my house and walk up that 1 kilometer to the football pitch. These were the two things he said. And I realized there were two powerful concepts here. One is that of, working on things beyond, which are within your control and not worrying about the other things. And the other is the concept of mindfulness. Just focus on the present moment. And then I asked him, how did that help you? He said, like, there was peace in my mind. So, I picked up a lot of lessons from, David's understanding of how he faced his adversity. So these are too many challenges at football. The belief is it's too tough and I'm not good enough. Consequences are I want to quit. And so what he did was he reframed the whole thing. He analyzed it. He found that there were some issues that were within his control and some beyond his control. And he'd work on what he can. So yeah, I found that was pretty mature for a person of his age, and I was really grateful because I struggle with these things. All of us struggle with these things, and he was able to pick up this and focus on the present activity. That is mindfulness, essentially. Whatever you're doing now, put the maximum thought into it, and the rest of it will take care of itself. Next thing is take your focus off the negative. There's a lot of negative news nowadays. I mean, this entire lockdown period has been frightful. More than the actual coronavirus, the negative news has really challenged us. I'm sure you'll all agree, won't you? And if you shut down your negative news, you have negative people to come to your doorstep, or you open up WhatsApp, there'll be people like bombarding you with negative stuff. So much so that you don't want to bear it anymore. You can't stand it. So the most important thing is tune out both the negative news, and if you have to say, thus far and no further to negative people, go ahead and do it. It helps, because that will give you a lot of relief in your life. You don't want, additional burdens over and above your setback. Finally, look for the silver lining even in the setback. Now, let me give you again my own personal example. Let me be honest with you. I've not really taken this lockdown very well. I've had some, negative thinking and whatnot during this lockdown. Well, I'll give you a time. Many years ago, when I had, a small accident, I'd lifted a huge suitcase full of books and put it on my shoulder. I was going to the gym that time. I thought I was really, strong and able to handle it. When I brought it down, there was a small, noise in my back, and then I felt my whole right leg going numb. I realized I had a slip disc, was diagnosed with a slip disc, spent about 15 days in the hospital, and I was discharged. But then the whole episode started at that time. The doctor told me I had to lie on the bed with the traction machine for 1 full month, doing nothing. So it's like this. You start in the morning, for 1.5 hours, you have to stay in a single position. After that, you can move a little bit and then continue for another 1.5 hours with the traction machine strapped to you. Only your bio breaks, etc., and bathing, etc., you can take a break for. So I was wondering, what am I going to do other than look at the clock? And then something struck me. I had been trying to prepare for my Cisco certification for the past few months before that, and I didn't have the time to do that. So what I did was I took the book and, did something like this and kept reading that entire 400-500 pages. And at the end of 1 month, I was ready for the exam. So September 12th, 2001, the day after the Twin Towers fell, I went and wrote the exam and passed it. So I found my silver lining even in that setback. Sometimes the obstacle is the path. I know it's challenging to look at it this way, but then sometimes the obstacle is our path. Let me share with you some insights from some of my clients, and a few people, friends of mine, who have actually shared some of the insights they got from their setbacks. So here we go. So this lady says, I became aware of thought processes that lean towards self-sabotage, something that's, very, very dangerous. I learned to then think clearly with a decluttered mind. So once the mind got decluttered, clarity came in. The next one, I was holding on to self-limiting beliefs. This is another lady whose parents made her feel very bad when she was young, made her feel that she was inferior, so many things. When she got rid of these beliefs, there was a huge breakthrough during her coaching sessions. And lastly, I'll just put in 3. Lastly, I got my aha moment when I realized I kept using the word can't, when in reality, I meant won't. It's a question of responsibility, isn't it? Like my I don't know, which kept on, in my mind. Making this shift really helped me. So the next step is to rise up and bounce back. So you acknowledge the setback, you reframe it, and then you rise up and bounce back. So firstly, what do you do? Pick yourself up. How do you pick yourself up? Be kind to yourself. We are taught to be kind to others, to be kind to animals, to be kind to everybody other than ourselves. But it's very important to be kind to yourself, because you can be kind to others only if you are kind to yourself. Focus on your well-being, even if that means, taking some time out, doing something you like, some hobbies. Focus on your well-being. Be nice to yourself, mentally, emotionally, physically. Take care of yourself. Say positive things to yourself. Drop grudges against others. The moment you keep on with the grudge, your thought pattern, it's like a wound that keeps on infesting, itself. So you really need to get rid of those grudges. Forgiveness is the key here, and we need to practice that. It's not easy. Review your purpose, passions, and strengths. We had a lovely webinar last time by Venki when he spoke about strengths, so I won't speak too much about strengths, but it's good to make a small strengths inventory, even if you don't want to take an assessment. Make an inventory of your strengths. Ask your family members about your strengths, what they think are your strengths. Put them together and you'll find that flow of yours, your strengths, interests, and of course, your purpose statement. If you haven't made a purpose statement, I would strongly encourage you to make a purpose statement. There are various purpose statement or mission statement builders. I find the Franklin Covey one very good. So you can use any one. See, because when you rise up and bounce back, you need some frame of reference. And if you have your purpose statements there, it kind of validates the direction that you want to take. Now, sometimes you may have to change direction. So in that case, it's very important to consider your purpose statement. Can you guess who this is? The small boy in the center? So he's the founder of Udemy. His name is Eren Bali. And let me tell you something about him. He grew up in a small, tiny Turkish village where he attended a one-room schoolhouse. Now, how many of us attended a one-room schoolhouse? Our schools, I'm sure, were huge. He attended a one-room schoolhouse where there were no computers. So when he managed to lay his hands on a computer, he really took off. He started exploring, doing courses, playing chess. His favorite subjects were maths, and he loved chess, maths, computer science, and chess. So within a few years, he kind of built a virtual classroom kind of a software. And that was the early 2000s. And in 2007, he had a full-fledged version of it. And he teamed up with two others, Gagan Biani and another chap, and went to the US and he founded Udemy. Now, what would you expect? Venture capital would flow in? He asked for venture capital and he was turned down. He was turned down. He asked for venture capital once, he was turned down. Twice, he was turned down. 3 times, he was turned down. Can you guess how many times they requested for venture capital? 30 times. I would have kind of closed shop and backed off at the 3rd or the 4th time. 30 times. They didn't get it. So they bootstrapped and they went live. Within a few months, they had about 1,000 instructors and 2,000 courses. And then they grew exponentially. The rest is history. Recently in Feb 2020, they were given about 50 million from a Chinese company, valued at about 2 billion, I think. They have about 60,000 trainers and 35 to 40 million users now. So this is the power of resilience, perseverance when it comes to picking yourself up. And he had one particular purpose and mission: to make quality education more accessible and improve lives through learning. This was, right from the beginning, his vision, because he faced so many setbacks when he was young, growing up in that small Turkish village. The next step is to make necessary adjustments and seek help. Sometimes we feel that we can handle our setbacks alone. I know we need to do our homework, but then we need to seek support from other people. We are interdependent beings. We are not, beings that are made to live in isolation. So that would mean a little bit of humility, So evaluate and decide on your new direction. If you have to change course because, say, you lost your job, you might want to become a consultant. If you've lost probably, a friend, or if you've broken a relationship, you may want to evaluate and see what to do next. Whom can I approach? And accordingly, your goals might change. So if you change direction, then you find an opening, an outlet. Seek support via coaching and counseling. Beautiful tools that, when used well, will make a breakthrough in people's lives. If you've gone through a traumatic experience, or your client has gone through a traumatic experience, counseling is appropriate. Otherwise, coaching will help you grow. We have a beautiful forum here, Coaches for You, and I don't need to say any more. So, all the opportunities are there. Skill up if you need to, learn some courses. I remember reading about a 96-year-old man in Italy sometime in August. I think some of you may have heard about it, who passed his degree in history and philosophy at the age of 96. So, I mean, that leaves us all with, a lot of opportunity. Lastly, leverage faith and spirituality if you believe, because a lot of people have been, have benefited and been blessed through their faith and their spiritual experiences. Finally, I leave you with a single thought. You need to take that step. Without putting your foot forward, nothing is going to happen. In all of these, what should I say, steps in the framework, if we do not take that step, we won't reach anywhere. Our spouses can't take that step for us. Our friends can't take that step for us. We have to take that step. So acknowledge the setback, reframe it, and you will bounce back. And your setback will be transformed into a comeback. Thank you. So here I will stop. And if you have anything to share, if you have some nice experiences where you actually overcame a setback, we'd love to hear it, but try to make it short so that we can all benefit from it. If you have questions, we can try and take them now.
That's a lovely invitation, Chris, and what a powerful subject and so powerfully delivered. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So anyone has any questions? We have less people, so we can take the questions first.
I have something to share, Johnny.
Yes,
here.
Yes, Johnny.
So when I started this practicing of coaching was in the month of March 2020, and I was wanting to do face-to-face booking time and booking space and having coaching sessions. And then the lockdown changed the whole thing. It was a big setback. Now, Chris, I think I connect with what you just said. I just looked at what's in it for me in this and what is staring at me. And I discovered now, after so many months, that his geography has now become history. And I'm coaching people across the globe instead of just restricting myself only to clients in Bangalore. So that I thought I must share. Thank you.
That's amazing that you used this lockdown very well. And Elsa too has mentioned that she finished her ACC during the lockdown. Super.
Yeah, lovely. So an opportunity for development.
Hi, Chris. This is Rajesh here. First of all, thanks a lot for this wonderful session. You mentioned that sometimes the obstacle is our path. Can you elaborate a little bit more on this?
Yeah. So I gave you the example of my own obstacle, isn't it? When I had my slip disc and I had to stay in bed, I actually used that opportunity to finish my Cisco certification. Well, I was struggling to do it before my accident. I wasn't able to because there was so much of work and so many issues for me to handle that I kept postponing the certification and the study for it. But when I had to go through this setback, I had nothing else to do, and I found that I could actually study for this. So that was the example that I gave. I'm sure you can find many more in your own lives.
So I had a personal situation as a consequence of which I had to relocate from overseas to India. And for quite some time, a couple of months, I was not able to find a job. And I reached out to friends. And one of them pointed out, I think you should look at an area because we see you interacting and you seem to be a good teacher. So a direction was given, and I moved away from a path where I was in a manufacturing organization into teaching. I got an assignment, and I discovered a new passion, something that I could excel in, and was very much liked by my students. And I've gone into teaching since then, and I'm a faculty member.
Wow.
Thank
Nice
you.
So nice examples. Yeah, there are times when people stay in denial. So that's the most difficult and painful thing. How can we help them overcome that and move into acceptance and action? So anybody can take this, huh? If you feel that you have something to say, how can you move from the denial mode into the actual active mode? Anybody? From denial to action. How will you build in self-awareness? Any ideas? How can you build in self-awareness in your client? How can you build in self-awareness? Realize that action will get you moving. See, the very fact that your client has come to you means the client is stuck. Thank you. So, you got to build in that awareness that the client is stuck and that action will get you moving. Yeah. Denial is a belief. That belief has to be kind of removed from the person's mind. Anybody want to talk about children? Anybody want to share about children? It's come up again. How to bring about more resilience in children. I think we do a lot nowadays for children. That's one general observation, this generation seems to be getting more and more entitled. I think making children more independent is the first step. Yeah, they already are resilient. But then when we spoon feed them, then the problem is, they lose that resilience. Let them think on their own. Wonderful. Let them do on their own also. Nowadays at the drop of a hat, we tend to, I like this toy, buy it. I like that game, buy it immediately. So there is no work for it. There is, no expecting. Treat them like adults sometime. True. Somebody was saying something. There was a lady who was saying something.
Yeah, Chris, it's me, Jennifer. So I just wanted to say that, we as parents, we tend to go and tell our children often from the mistakes that they make, the errors that I think it's a parental tendency to go and catch them at the time. And I think
Jennifer, is that Jennifer speaking?
Yes.
I don't think, can you speak up a bit? You're not very audible.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is that better?
Yeah, much better.
Okay, great. So what I was saying was, as parents, we have this tendency of going to save our children when when we see them falling, when we see them making mistakes. We want to save them. And I think part of the thing of way in which we can build resilience in children is to allow them to fall, allow them to see that mistake, and then guide them through understanding, analyzing, and coming out of that situation. Chris earlier said something about naming their feelings and creating that distance. That would be the next step. But our own tendency to save our children and not see them fall, I think that can be a hurdle sometimes for building resilience.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Nisha, also for your compassion, courage, and creativity. Thank you. These are good thoughts. I hope Margaret has got her answers, or at least some thoughts in these suggestions. We need to be coaches even with our children, and that's a huge relief for them when we don't preach too much, when we get into a coaching mode. Great. Is there any other question or a thought or suggestion? Over to Rekha.
Yes. Thank you, Chris. If there are no more questions, no more thoughts, no one wants to share, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for joining in on Friday evening. Thank you so much, Chris, for sharing from your life and such beautiful examples and giving us such a structured way of, dealing with setbacks. Thank you very much.